Hi everyone, I want to talk a bit about what constitutes value for money and what is value for money in terms of games. And this kind of goes back a bit to microtransactions. Now, I've already said before that I think that microtransactions are abysmal and horrible when they are in the form of paying for resources and the type that allow you to pay in order to get better stuff in the game, in order to do better. I think that's horrible, and it's sticking people into a prisoner's dilemma situation, and it's really evil. It sounds kind of cheesy, I know when I'm saying that, but I do literally think it's an immoral thing to do. And it's all about playing on people's psychology of what is valuable in terms of victory in games. Now, I'm not going to talk about that, because that's not part of what I'm talking about, but I am talking about the type of microtransactions where you pay, and what you pay for is the ability to play more often, if I get my words out properly. The ability to play more often. So I use Tekken Revolution as the example, where you play the game for free, and you have tokens that run out, and once you run out of tokens you can't play again until they recover, and they recover over time. But you can pay with real money in order to get premium tokens, and these premium tokens allow you to play even when your main tokens are recovering. And I said I can back this, because you're not paying to win, or you're not paying to get anything to get you through the game faster. What you are paying for is the ability to play more often. So you are effectively buying content. It's like DLC. Not entirely like normal DLC, but it kind of is like DLC. Now, someone was once saying to me in this discussion, because she had saw that rant where I had been going on about microtransactions, and I had said about Tekken Revolution's system, and she said that she didn't like the idea, she thought it was horrible, up until I said that the game was free, that the game itself was free. Now, in principle, I think there's nothing wrong with paying for a game with microtransactions of that sort. The way I see it is that if anything can have a value, anything that has an inherent value to it, like eating a meal, or going to see a film, or travelling somewhere, there is inherent value to it. Not saying that it's always going to be good, or that you're always going to wish that you've done it. You might go to see a film that you've paid for, come out thinking that was terrible, but the idea is that watching a film is still, by its nature, and what's the word I'm looking for? In concept, I suppose, the concept of a film is to be entertaining, and it is there in order to help you, like, build up your entertainment levels and all that, and you volunteer to do it. However, when it comes to, like, and I know I said I won't go into this, but I kind of am. When it comes to microtransactions like paying for resources in a game, there is no inherent value to the resources in terms of real life money, real life cash, because that world is different from our real world, so to speak, and so we shouldn't measure them on the same scale. After all, what fun would a game be if you could just buy everything straight up and then the game's finished? There's no inherent value to it. There's nothing there. So yeah, that's what I don't like about those types of microtransactions. But the idea is that Tekken Revolution, it is free, but I would have no problem with the concept of it not being free, because, I mean, even though you've got games where they are not free, you pay for them, and they might have microtransactions in them, and the bad microtransactions, the resource type of microtransactions, I don't care whether the game's free or not, I don't want them at all. And the other type of microtransactions, the paying to play more, the paying to play more often, Well, if you were to buy a full game for like £40 or $60, and then it kind of limited you off and then said, oh, you have to pay more in order to recover these tokens, yeah, I could see that as being like kind of a bad thing, because when you go into that experience, when you go into that game, you're expecting a full game that you can keep playing and not have to pay to keep playing more often. You kind of expect that. And the same kind of applies for like free games, in the sense that you expect it not to be perfect because it's free. But the difference is that even though we might look at the difference between a full-priced £40, $60 game with a free game, we can see obviously we expect a different level of quality there, and we expect the microtransactions in a free-to-play game. That doesn't necessarily mean that what you play for free is without value, because Tekken Revolution, I played through and I got all of the trophies, and if I wanted to I could go back to it, but I'm not a massive Tekken fan. I'm not hugely into Tekken. I mean, I do like Tekken and I have played Tekken games in the past, but I'm not hugely a fan. I went through and I got the trophies, and that's enough to satisfy me, and I got the game for free. And because the microtransactions were of the good kind, I didn't feel like I was being gimped, or I was being tricked, or I was being psychologically attacked. I still enjoyed the game, and because I enjoyed the game, that means that if it wasn't free up until a point, I would still see some sort of value in it. You've got to realise that just because something might not be perfect, and just because something might impose restrictions, doesn't necessarily mean that it's become worthless. Because the time that I spent playing it was fun, and if I was asked to pay, if it was £1, for example, I'd have no problem paying £1 for just the free portion of the game. Like I said, it's like DLC. If I wanted to buy a game like Fallout 3, for example, but I didn't want to play the DLC for that extra content, for that extra playtime, then that's fine. Because I think that this type of DLC, this type of microtransactions about playing more, is very easily comparable to DLC, even though obviously there's very clear differences. I think it's comparable enough in order to be able to make this comparison, to say that, well, I would be willing to pay for the free part of the game because it was enjoyable, and I'm glad it was free, because, you know, I would rather not spend money than spend money. But if it was available for a price but not for free, yeah, sure, up to a point. If it was £10, probably not. If it was £60, definitely not. If it was, I don't know, if it was £3, probably. But just because it implements these the good microtransactions, I'm just going to call them the good microtransactions from now on, because it has the good microtransactions, that does not devalue the fun of the free part of the game. If Tekken Revolution was to not have any pay-to-play extra microtransactions, it wasn't had to have any good microtransactions, then even still, the game, and I'm sure people would tend to agree more in this case, the game would still be fun to play. Even though you think, what is the point of these restrictions? I don't understand. I'm just trying to think about how like certain restrictions could be good even without those those pay-to-play more mechanics. Anyway, that would go off into a different rant for another day and something completely different. Anyway, but that is a good thought, but I'll get to that another time, not now. But the point is that portion of the game that I played, even with those mechanics of, you know, only being able to play up to a point, that was still enjoyable, so I would have been willing to pay for it. And if I thought it was really good and I wanted to play all the time, then I think paying for the free portion plus, well, I say free, paying for that portion of the game and paying for the individual fights would be perfectly fine. In fact, the paying for the game itself would be loads more valuable because you don't run out of tokens, because those tokens recover. So that would be the best part of that would be the most valuable part of the game if you were to do that. But you know, it would be the most valuable, but it's valuable as it is because it's free. I understand why they made it free, because they had these pay-to-play mode mechanics in, is to get people into it so that people would be willing to pay to play more frequently with the premium tokens. But the only point I'm having to make here is that I have no qualms with the idea that it might not have been free. That's all. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I'll see you all next time.